I said Michael's having problems. They sent Michael's computer saying that his computer is acting weird and he's trying to get on the phone. Bench is about to be in a minute, and then what's it called? His Drew's right behind him, so you might as well start. Okay, you're on.
To Shelly Speaks Truth. I would like to wish everyone a happy new year. This is the first show of the new year, and I'm very excited about what's coming for Shelly Speaks Truth this year. Before I get started, I would like to thank the sponsors, buhosting.com, as well as Urban Country Films for putting these productions together every week. I also would like to invite you to go to my Facebook page and check out my novel that will be relaunching this year, Grown Little Girls. You can check out the Facebook page. You can also visit my website, shellyspeakstruth.urbancountryfilms.com, to take a look over there and check out some streams from last year's live streams and other things pertaining to the show. Now, tonight is, a very special show that I'm excited about because we're talking about what's next for Black America following the elections. A lot of people are excited right now that the Democratic Party took the White House, and Joe Biden will be the next president of the United States. A lot of people are rejoicing about that, but the thing is that my view on it, as well as many others, is it doesn't matter who is in the White House. Not much really changes for Black society with each and every election. So, we need to come up with strategies and things like that we can implement that will help us to be able to fix the issues in our community, no matter who is in the White House. I got a lot of backlash about that when I made that statement on Facebook, but that statement rings true. There are unique issues within our community that we have to deal with in order for us to be able to, live the type of lifestyle that we seek to live in this country. Earlier, Michaels from Solutions was going to join me. We had a little bit of technical difficulties. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the second segment, which is our conversation about reparations, because my honest opinion about something that will advance us forward is reparations. We all know what has been done to us in this country, the atrocities that has been committed against us. And I think that reparations is something that is due to the descendants of slaves in this country. But I'll take it a step further, because a lot of people say slavery was so many hundreds of years ago. But when you think about it, there are practices that took place after slavery that I feel reparations are due for as well. But right now, I have Vince joining me, Vince from Momento Mori. And the reason I have Vince here on the topic about reparations is because one thing that I see when the topic of reparations comes up is that an overwhelming majority of Black people obviously agree that reparations are due. But we see some resistance from our white counterparts. And I just wanted to know where that resistance comes from and what white society feels about reparations, and why a lot of people within white society tend to feel that they're not responsible for helping to implement reparations and making those payments. So thank you for joining me, Vince. And I'm just gonna jump right into it because I've lost a little bit of time here. I'm gonna jump right into it and welcome you to the panel. And if you could give me just a general idea, I know you can't speak for the whole of white society, but if you could just give me a general idea of why you feel that it is that there is resistance on behalf of the white community when it comes to reparations.
Man, that is a tough one, Miss Shelley, because um, the term white society, the generalization is it lumps and clumps everything into one group. So within, let me do it like this: within white society, we don't see ourselves as like, oh, it's my fellow white man. It's more like, okay, these people are Irish descendants, these people are Scottish descendants, these people are Brazilian, these people are from Latin America. And if some like there's different types of whites. So the differences we have to find are cultural differences. And within each culture, what the mindset is in the process behind that culture is. So for example, if you take the Irish community, I'm part Irish, I'm Swedish Irish, which is why my nickname is Swedish Meatballs right now. The Irish community, they suffered huge atrocities through and through. And if you go back to history, even in America, the Irish community was right there alongside the slaves. And the Oriental were here as migrants, but they were still used for slave labor. So you're going to have that group of people who are like, hey, I was right there with you. What am I paying for? Then you're going to have the groups of people who just migrated here within the last, I don't know, let's just say 100 years as a target, and their ancestors, et cetera, wherever they come from, they don't have any ties to the early colonial Americans. So they're not going to feel responsible as well. Then you have groups of people who may have been, their descendants have been here for whatever, 300, 400, 500 years. And those people may not have ties to plantations. I don't know. But other groups of people do have ties to plantations. And so that puts everything into this gray area of, okay, who's responsible and who pays and how does it work? So then you got to go into the economics of it. If it's the government paying for it, on the economic portion of rationalization, they just borrow money from the Federal Reserve, and then the Federal Reserve turns around and taxes it eternally on everyone, not one group of people, but on everyone forever. So we're in so much debt in America. I could go off on a tangent on that subject alone, but that's how the reparations will be made. So coming to a economical, logical decision is where the dilemma lies, and that can go on forever. So even people like, you take what is Mr. Sowell's first name? Is it Thomas Sowell, the economist? I can't remember his first name, but Mr. Sowell, brilliant mind. He's an economist. He did housing and urban development way back, and he's an economist. And he understands these things in like high levels, and he can break them down even better. But it's going to be hard to resolve because of all the complexities of where does the money come from, the Federal Reserve, because they're going to have to borrow it, the government, and how does that work? So this lump sum divided between how many people who are eligible for it, there's this huge gray area. A lot of people do want to bandwagon onto it. And, you know, you've got a lot of fakers out there, Michelle, because I've heard you put them on blast, that are like, they're not entitled to anything. Their descendants isn't even entitled to anything. They're just trying to bandwagon to get money. Those people, how do you sort all those out? So you have this complex issue, and that's where all the arguments come in. And actually, that's not even the white community. That is pretty much the American community at large, depending on what side, I guess, politically people stand on. What are your thoughts?
This is the issue that I have when it comes to the topic of reparations, and people only trying to make it seem as though reparations are only due for slavery. And that's why I said in the beginning of the segment, reparations are due for more than just slavery. Because when you think about the amount of economic atrocities that were committed against Black people in this country, where they were locked out of wealth for generations and generations preceding slavery, And at the same time, the government was literally giving land and resources to our white counterparts. And the reason I say white is because when they categorize race, they don't really break it down by what your cultural background is. It's like, you're white, you might be Italian, but you're going to identify as white for the purposes of just categorizing a race. And when the government gave out that money, that land, and all those grants for education, farming, Black people were excluded from that. And this was post-slavery, this happened. That was decades and decades of generational wealth that the government allowed the private sector as well as in the public sector to discriminate against a specific group of people and lock them out of those resources. So when you think about reparations, there was damage done to those people that needs to be accounted for. And the issue of reparations is such a big issue because, again, reparations needs to be paid for more than just slavery. The damage is so deep. When you think about mass incarceration, the war on drugs, these were all things that targeted a specific group of people. And then to add insult to injury, the government turned around and handed out resources to a specific group of people and locked another group out of it. How do you, my thing is to be fair. If we're going to say that we want to get along as one people in this country, some of the wrongs of the past are going to have to be corrected in order for that to happen. You can't expect people to just have all these atrocities done to them. For example, my mother lived through Jim Crow. So when people say, oh, this is something that happened hundreds of years ago, Jim Crow was an economic catastrophe for Black people because they were locked out of access to resources. And this is stuff that is well documented. And I feel like the need to want to be able to do the work and skim through this and get it done is going to have to be, on the shoulders of the people of this country. Because again, there's a whole lot more that reparations is due for than just slavery. And that's something that we're going to have to begin to admit to. Okay, the panel is getting, I see Drisco just jumped in. Michael is back with us. And the first thing I want to do is I want to make sure that everybody can hear me.
Loud and clear.
I can hear you clearly, yep.
Drisco can hear me. Can you hear me, Michael?
Yes.
Okay, great. Now everybody can hear me. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce Michael. Thank you for being here with me, Michael, from Solutions here on YouTube, as well as on Urban Country Films. I have Drisco here with me from End Time Souljahs. Welcome to the panel, guys.
Hey, pleasure to be here.
Appreciate you.
Okay, I'm gonna jump to Michael because we lost a lot of Michael's segment the first time around with YouTube and doing what YouTube does. So
shadow banning.
This my
doing the absolute most. But to bring the program back around, I want to ask Michael a few questions, and then I want to get some perspective from Drisco as well. So Michael, again, can you explain to us what your platform solutions?
Well, it's about what it said, solutions. There are a lot of issues in our community, and I have been doing a lot of observing, and there are lots of talk, and there are people who have some kind of solution, but it's the run of the mill, everyday, what everybody's doing, not working. So I lead a kind of lifestyle where I realize that for me it worked, and it's very simple, and I believe that seeing what's going on today and realizing that everybody is going to have to conform one way or another. I just realized I can utilize my knowledge and provide some solutions. And it's mostly for right now is around um, Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and blockchain because it's a new technology. It is the reality. It's going to be more in the mainstream this year. And as a people, we always tend to be consumers. And right now, we have a unique opportunity where if you get in, even without understanding what it is, you can have real wealth. I've been involved in Bitcoin since 2011, and and hey, look where it's at right now. Along with Bitcoin, there's a spin-off. There's Ethereum, and there is smart contract. There is Lightning Network. There are a whole bunch of things that I spend a lot of time on and realize that I can bring this. And a lot of our people are not into technology, but we are into technology. And if I can provide a way where people utilize the thing that they're having without forcing them to, you know, um, earn while they're doing mundane stuff. For example, anybody remember Candy Crush? Candy Crush, people get tokens. There are things like that where people can still play, and the tokens, they can actually get physical cash and buy real things with it. So, that's just the aspect of the um, the technology side of crypto. And you guys have to excuse me. I'm not really a in front of the mic kind of guy. So this is also something that will be more, streamlined and more professionalized, they call it. But I believe I have a wealth of something to offer. And I don't care about the presentation right now because I'm dealing with the lay person, and the lay person would understand what's going on once it's starting to make sense, if that makes sense.
Right. So, with that being said, when you say solutions, you're speaking specifically of solutions for the Black community?
Yeah.
Okay, so I see you talked about finances. So do you believe that a lot of our issues right now are mainly financial?
No, it's our issue, and it's funny, your topic is about reparation. A lot of people don't understand that my Swedish meatball, he spoke on the topic of white people identifying themselves as European or whatever. I travel. I've been to the only state I passed through is the dairy state up there in New England, but I've been to every state. And the country is divided. There's the Commonwealth states. If people want to understand that, and then there are the New England states. If you go to Wisconsin, and if you're a German, they refer to Germany as old country. So a lot of people have to understand first that America is just a European colony. So, and the whole slavery thing wasn't originated here. For example, when they agreed to abolish slavery, they decided that the people who are going to lose, they're going to have to find a way to pay them. So they take out loans and turn around and have former slaves help pay that loan. And that loan ended up paying off in 1995. So to the opposition of reparation, they have to understand that it's not just asking for money, because there some legalities at the end of slavery. There were treaties that were signed and all kind of agreement that were made that are breached. That's why you hear people talk about this 40 acre and a mule. because it was an actual treaty that was broken. So, but the issue of reparation, there is no who to pay reparations to, and they know this. There's nobody, like, if they should agree and say, okay, tomorrow we're going to pay reparations, who are we going to pay reparations to? Because we as a people, we're not united. So they know this. So even in order to even go to, we can't send Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton to go and say, because they don't represent a nation. So, you know, first we have to understand who and how we're going to go about getting this reparation. We have to first be united as a nation, and it's not within the United States. It has to be recognized within the UN. So all of this has to be done within the UN. And people, this have nothing to do with the populace, or it's nothing to do with the white population. This is straight up with a race of people and the government, because they made an agreement. And this is why when slavery ended, they brought in the Chinese and the Indians and all of these people, because they're like, well, we had you enslaved for how many years, and we made this treaty, and right now you're all illiterate, so we're just gonna use this crop sharing shit and trap you back into slavery, so that, you know. So anyway, I can go off on that, but my show is not really about that, because you have your show about that, and there are tons of people talking about that. But what I am about is seeing things from my experience, where I've been around a lot of influential people, and I have a fly on the wall perspective of a lot of things, and people are going to see this in my show.
Okay. Well, thank you for that perspective on that. Does anybody have anything they would like to add to that before I move on?
No,
I'm learning and listening as well.
likewise.
Okay, well, like I said, man, we can just kick it then, you know, if I say I have lots to talk about, so we can kick it. Your show is you know, about reparation, and we tend to have a personal, like, from a lot of people. I tell people I'm like the kind of guy, I have the duck kind of water rolls off my back kind of mentality. As long as you don't touch me, I don't, you know. So I've been in position where people who are influential, just with a stroke of a pen, can, like, do stuff. And when you see the mentality of how they think, you realize that if we don't do anything on our own, we're screwed.
Right.
The people
I want to jump to Drisco for a second.
Yeah.
Because me and Drisco, we've had a few exchanges on Facebook. And I wanted to get your perspective on this, because I think me and Michael are pretty much in agreement that there's a lot of issues within the Black community that we need to unify and solve these issues. I don't want to misrepresent your thoughts on this, but what I will say is that from what I gathered, you're kind of in disagreement of that. And you're saying that, you know, we're individuals, and it's not necessarily a thing of us feeling, you know, obligated, so much obligation to coming together as a group and solving our issues together as a group, and, you know, basically building the infrastructure and things like that that's needed specifically for Black society. But again, I don't want to misrepresent your thoughts. So if you could give us some insight on how you feel about that, unifying as a group and basically moving forward in that capacity.
Yeah, I don't necessarily disagree on unifying as a group. I think where we may have more so disagreed was that group had to be specifically limited to Black people. That was the part that I didn't quite understand, why that was a necessity. And why not unify as a country? Maybe we have different goals as a whole that I'm missing in that.
Can I like I can speak on one topic, for example.
Okay.
The whole issue of police brutality. Okay. Now, whether you are for the law enforcement or for, you know, against or whatever it is, the issue of it being systematic is because I live in New York City, and if you go down to Chinatown, every patrol car has a Chinaman in there. And this is Chinatown in New York City. You understand what I'm saying? In our community, we have outsiders, okay, where there are a lot of things that come into play. You have people that only see you on TV, come and do a shift in your neighborhood and go home. That's his exposure to you, work. So when we as a community, if we have our own community, our own, I come from a community in Jamaica where law enforcement in there is like, people stop and look like, what the hell, what's going on here? So it is something that worked. It reduced problems, because what happened, you eliminate the issue of snitching, because police know exactly who they is, and they're not even gonna be like, okay, that's Uncle so-and-so or somebody in the neighborhood. That's just one aspect. The other aspect of it is that every other ethnicity in this country have a lobbyist, have a lobby group, have a group of people that a politician have to sit in front of and say, hey, this is the policies or what kind of things we can do for your vote. We don't have a block. We just have a person to go and say, go out there, get the vote, and and there is no real benefit for us, because we are not a group, we're individualized. And as long as we're like that, we're going to continue to have problems, because when we live, we can prosper individually, but when our problems come, it comes collectively. So
It looks like we lost Drisco, but I definitely agree with you on that. Vince, do you want to chime in on this? Because one thing that I do hear is that, let's just say, for example, for the context of the show, you as a white man, some people say when white people speak this way, it is viewed as racist. Like, I guess, kind of just living among your group within your community, not totally taking yourself out of society as a whole, but being in a community with people that share your culture, that share, just your way of life. Oftentimes I hear people say that's racist if a white person says that. So what is your thoughts on that? Do you feel that there's something wrong with Black people wanting to be within a community among themselves to kind of build up a community that can relate to them?
Absolutely not. There's no simple answer. For instance, my community is the Christian community. So the way that we relate to each other is morals. Like, what do we believe morally amongst one another? And that defines us. So we tend to flock together, and we group together, and we do things together. We'll, obviously go to church, but outside of church, these are the people that we like to hang out with. And that common ground is what gives us strength. Not to throw off topic, but like right now, there's a big attack on Christianity within the media community, with like online, where they're doing all this mass censoring, etc. So the brilliance of that is when, and this is going to tie back into your subject, by the way, the brilliance of that is when they can keep us from communicating with each other and stay home, and we don't go to services, we don't go to church anymore, we don't see each other, we don't feel each other, we don't give hugs. It starts to weaken us and dampen us. And it's a brilliant, to play devil's advocate, a brilliant psychological tactic to keep us separated and weak. And I can recognize from a tactician aspect, and for those of you that obviously you're not going to know me, but I teach martial arts, etc., and not just regular martial arts, but application. We actually fight. These are tactics; they have to be tangible. So if you apply that same principle within the Black community to keep them like isolated or separated, or I don't want to call it overly diversified, because I'm state raised. So I grew up around, I relate more to the Black community. I know that's going to sound ridiculous, but I'm state raised. So I do. Within the community, I see the pockets of people and how they stick together. So the Jamaican community was very tight knit where we were at. And then the Haitian community, those guys stick together, and so on, so on. And then, like, down south here in Florida, you would have the Miami boys that would stick together, and then the Broward boys would stick together. They all are trying to identify with this same common denominator of this is how we relate to each other. And everybody's going to relate to something different. So until those walls are broken down, I know, I apologize, this is going on a tangent, that togetherness won't be there. And for any community, not exclusive to the Black community, there has to be that denominator, or that same vision of what do we want within our community and how do we accomplish it tangibly, not theoretically, tangibly. How do we make this happen? And then I believe it was you, Michael, who said it. You got to just go do it. Or maybe it was Drisco. I can't remember. One of you guys was like, just do it.
It had to be him. I ain't get to really get into nothing yet.
Okay, so it's probably Michael.
Well, Drisco, I'm glad we have you back. I don't know how much of Michael's last statement you caught, but Michael, do you mind kind of rehashing that just a little bit, because we lost Drisco.
Yeah. I apologize, brother. I missed
the
whole
thing,
man.
It's fine. As far as the community, us needing a community for ourselves.
Well,
and is that a negative thing? Can that be viewed as racism? And to which I said no.
It can't be, and before I forget, what's going on right now is that everybody was like earlier at the end of slavery, because it's a few people up on top, and they use our differences and have this side Ponzi scheme because at the end of the day, let's not kid ourselves. It's all about slavery was ended because of a financial, now you have to feed them, and it's more costly. So it's always the bottom line. So we're at the point right now where that Ponzi scheme and the bullshit is at a head, and everybody is like, hold on a second. So you mean you've been doing this to all of us this whole time? And we're at that point right now, and they're trying to disrupt their last breath of this confusion shit, but people are starting to realize that, hey, on all levels. But to back to the community building thing, what I was saying is that if we don't have anybody that look like us, it's a double-edged kind of a problem we have, because most people are very resistant, especially the youth. In your own house, you have a child, they hit teenage years and they're resistant to their parent. You know what I'm saying? Let alone law enforcement, let alone somebody who don't look like you. You know what I'm saying? And that person who's coming from another perspective, I'm 48 years old. So in the 90s, I see all of the advertisement and everybody on a like a wanted poster or the image of a breaking in. It's a dude, a black dude, and all of that kind of stuff. So picture those suburban people who are now mindset on his opinion of what he saw on TV, and now these people are lieutenant, captain, and all kind of stuff. So they run a beat. They don't really ever really interact with people unless they're locking you up or getting your sad story. So unless we have people who are like us, and I told you about the, not having police ever coming into my community when I was a child, there was never no law enforcement, never need to come in there because we police ourselves. And
you mean like y'all didn't have a lot of crime in that community?
huh?
So there wasn't a lot of crime in the community?
I'm not gonna say that, but what I'm gonna say is the police didn't have to. The law enforcement in the community was the people in the community. There's gonna be crime regardless. You can't stop that.
But y'all handled it internally.
But a lot of times you take somebody to the police and they're like, "What did they do?" Y'all decide what y'all gonna do with him. It makes no sense for us even to bother to waste our time on this shit. We got better things to do. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So it's in us as a people, we have to start realizing, like, where I live, I'm like, yo, you're my neighbor. You got to know me. I don't give a shit what my kids are gonna be outside. You know, so I'm saying I approach you, and based on where you're from, I know your stereotype, and I'm like, yo, this is not where you're from. This is here. You understand? You're gonna be living next to me, and there's only two way we can live in peace. All right. So we're gonna live at peace because my children and all of that bullshit that you think about or all of that, forget all of that. We're neighbors, and we're gonna be like that until you move. You can go back to how you want to be. You move here next to me. You're not gonna come here and make me uncomfortable. We are living here loving, and that's how it is. And it's weird because a lot of people, there's a Russian and American Jew on one side, Indian and Indian next to each other, me and another Jamaican. And when I came here, everybody, some people even move. And it was because of my presence, people are like, and I call them on it. I say, listen, you can't be, I know y'all have this, whatever it is, perception or image, but y'all gonna be with me. I didn't do anything to you. You know what I'm saying? I come here, my culture is different. I like to do shit outside, work on my car. I play my music. If you got a problem with the music, you call the police. The police come, hey, soundproof your house. You know what I'm saying? If you got a problem, I don't get into argument. Hey, I'm not breaking the law. You feel like calling law, call the law. When the law comes and we deal with that shit until I'm saying, okay, you see, done with that shit. We're good people and people will change. But at the end of the day, there are reparations, as you said, that we throw around the word reparation. And if, like you, my brother, you believe that, we need to include people. You have a white man here who don't have a problem with it. The people who, once they hear reparation and start having, first people got to realize that they don't matter. You know what I'm saying? And the issue of that, we are the only people who endure hundreds of years slavery, and asking for reparation is not something that we should ask for because it is entitled. They agree. It's an agreement. There was an agreement there's a treaty. So all we have to figure out is how we put that into practice where it benefit our people, and it shouldn't be from the system that was the master for 400 or 500 years, because it's not going to work. And that's where we have to unify first and have a collective agreement, because the system, if they're going to give you reparation, they're going to tell you it's going to be in some kind of tax break and this, that, and the third. Whereas a former person who parent was in the Holocaust is entitled to X amount of money. Just not, if you're first generation, you get X amount of money. That's direct cash. We don't want that. because that's going to leave out some people. What they need to define is what they did and how to satisfy the contract and who they're going to give it to. And we have to figure out a way to be unified in front of the UN, because we're not dealing with see what we did, we make our issue a United States issue. Our issue is a world issue. We have did you know that there was an emergency session in the UN because of the Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, and the Ahmaud Arbery thing? There was an emergency session held on July 22nd, where if right now, if 1 million of us assemble ourselves in one place and say, hey, we are right here, we're a percentage of a nation, we have nation state in the United States, in the UN, and now they can give reparations. So there are things like that going on, but nobody's telling people about that kind of stuff.
Not to cut you, because there's a lot of information out there that is available to us.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, because people don't want to seem divisive and things like that, they kind of shy away from it. Yeah. But I want to get to Drisco really quickly. What is your thoughts on what Michael is saying? Do you feel that it's necessary for us to have a community that is specific to us, so that we can begin to, I guess I could say, repair a lot of the damage that was done to our group here in this country?
Well, I think the beauty of freedom is that you can do it, and if it works, I don't have a problem with it. I just don't see it as a necessity, because even hearing Michael, given his own experience, he says he has a Russian or a Jew neighbor, and they got an understanding of how to maintain their community together. And that's all I was saying. I don't think that it's the only plausible means is segregation, and he's clearly an example of that.
Yeah, but even though, like I said that, but at the end of the day, they have everybody else have their own identity. Everybody is unified. I know for a fact that every person who is a Jewish descent in America is always told that at the end of the day, you are a Jew first. And every one of them have to go to the nation of Israel for a rite of passage. Everybody else on this planet who is of some kind of ethnicity, majority, have an identity and have a proud identity. And we're the only people who are divisive. We're not on one accord on how we should be as a people. It's like,
that's a good point.
That is never like, you could be a Christian, you could be a Muslim, you could be a Buddhist, you could be all of that. You know what I'm saying? And I can be like, yo, I don't rock with that, none of that kind of shit. But I'm all for by us, for us. Oh yeah, I rock with that. I ain't gonna sit and listen to all of your religious stuff, but how we build a nation. You know what I'm saying?
Do you feel like that's what most of these groups of people do? Because like you mentioned, Jews, they're all of the same faith.
Yeah, the
Chinese typically are too.
Everybody, look, I used to, one of my jobs, running trucks across the country. I was running for the Triad, and I pick up stuff in California, and you pick it up off of a Chinese ship. You take it to a Chinese warehouse. You run the LA leg to Chinese restaurants and storage facility. You leave from, and everything inside there is Chinese. You know what I'm saying? Their money sold too in Jamaica. I used to work in a place called Free Zone in Jamaica. The ship come in, and they have this agreement where if the product didn't touch Jamaican soil, it is technically not on Jamaican soil. So they didn't even pay taxes and all of that kind of stuff. And and this is on a nation level, but the point I'm trying to make is that because America is a European colony, and the Europeans living in America don't have to worry about the issues of whatever, so they can be American, and they also can be European when need be. You know what I'm saying? But when you speak to a black man or black woman in America, I'm American. So there is we don't have any sense of pride, and we don't have any sense of
except for the Caribbean blacks, they typically have pride in their.
no, it's individual pride, and it's
Right.
a pride. I'm Jamaican. It's a pride.
Right.
Like it's misplaced pride because as you said, in we Jamaica and Haiti came together and had the revolution that whooped the French ass. And the British and the French came together and say, hey, one thing we're gonna do is make sure them two are never friends again. And that's why if you talk to Haitians and Jamaican, I don't like Jamaicans, I don't like Haitians.
Right,
They're
facts.
like, why? You're like, I don't know, I just don't. You know what I'm saying? Because if you
Right.
speak to other Caribbean people who are of my age, they will tell you that it was official teachings in their school not to look up on Jamaicans and Haitian favorably. They're the hooligans, don't be like them.
Wow.
So there are a lot of division going on, and at the same time, like for example, you know, and I see where there's hope in on this topic, where the system always have the race card to flip, and they always could prey on people's issues. And what happened right now is that even though there are racist people, redneck people, all kind of racist people over there, truth be told, if you don't go over there, you ain't got to worry about them. You know what I'm saying? If you don't cross over into their boundaries, you don't have to worry about them. If they don't come into, so what's going on right now is that authority, they realize that they can't play the race card for much longer, because people are like, yo, if I don't go over there, niggas, it's not a problem. If I don't go over there, redneck's not a problem. You understand what I'm saying? So with that, I don't know what orchestrate this staying in your house kind of thing, because we are like on a collective. We connect. We're social creatures, but if we get forced to stay in the house, we started to connect on a different level, where right now there's a lot of woke community, and there is a lot of issues on reparations, and there's a lot of issues on what we're going to do, and a lot of all of that. And this is why my show is Solutions, because I am here to provide solutions. Like reparations, unless we're unified, reparations is only going to look like something on paper. Somebody's going to be like, yeah, I give you reparation. They try to pull that when they elect Obama. You have people who actually come in and say, oh, you have a black president, so racism don't exist anymore. Racism ain't going anywhere. And we constantly trying to fix racism. You can't teach a grown person integrity. You can force a person who don't like you based on the color of your skin. You can't go and change his mind, and you shouldn't. But
guys, really quickly, I don't mean to cut you because we're a little bit pressed for time. I'm going to jump to the comments really quickly. There's a few comments that are coming in, and the first one says, people think literal when Black people say they need a community. A community is not a place. I'm not sure if I completely agree with that. I do think that
yeah, I'm trying to
everybody can live. everybody needs to live around each other for that community to be effective to the extent that it could. Jasmine says, y'all want a new NAACP. The next comment says, well, just like how they have the Jewish community, you can't mess with a Jew without the whole community coming down on you. The next comment says, just like you have the LGBTQ community, you can't mess with them without the whole community coming down on you.
It's clearly the same with the Black community, though, in that regard. We just had, multiple cities burned down this summer.
I don't really agree because the Black community.
First,
we do the same thing.
No.
Really, I don't think we stick together.
First of all, I'm gonna tell you this: do not speak on issues of, especially with the burning of cities and all of that, unless you're on the ground.
I've been on the ground.
Speak on those issues.
I've been on the ground. I got video footage.
Yeah, a lot of those things are agitators. They're people who are there for that. So we can't use that as an example.
That's true. Let me finish my point, my brother. You're right. Yeah. As far as I watched that at the Philly riots, and most of the cars and stuff set on fire was done by white Antifa members. I'm clear on that. What I was referencing, though, is that they agitated a protest that was brought together by Black people. The majority of the people that did those things were not Black, though. You are right. Yeah. But I'm saying we did still come together and not accept what was happening.
And you know, coming together, like, we don't have, again, it's one voice. Like the Jewish, every person who runs for office, who is a serious candidate for office, have to go and sit in front of a Jew lobby. There is like CPAC and all of these things that have to do with the nation of Israel. And the nation of Israel is a Jew person, home or abroad. And that is why, side note, there are a whole bunch of people from Ethiopia who they have to be putting on planes in the middle of the night or at daytime to bring them to Israel. They're like, hold on a second. So Jews, I'm a Jew, what's up? And they have to be with them, a home and abroad. The point is that because there are old country, you go over to Wisconsin, all over those places, those are German. When the Queen of England come here and she go to Prince William County, you see what happened is we don't realize, because we pay taxes and we pay into a system, we have no benefits from it. And it's a system that until we unify and create something of our own. For example, what
benefits would you mean? Just so I can understand, like what benefits do our white counterparts have that we don't?
For example, I lived in New York City during the 90s, and Harlem looked nothing like how it was back in the day. And the reason for that is because all they have to do is set up a thing called Red Line, and they just push people out, price people out of the neighborhood. You understand what I'm saying? Because these people can come in as groups and buy communities or whatever for cheap and do what they want with it. We don't have anything. If we go to get a loan, if you remember back in the 90s, again, you say there's a cliche, oh, I need white people credit because Black people credit is bad. That was intentional. You know what I'm saying? So there are a whole little bunch of systematic things where somebody like me, with all of the information and the knowledge that I know, I can be like, yo, racism where? Segregation where? Discrimination where? Because I can provide and do things for myself that the average, if you just apply yourself. But when you realize that there is a conscious effort that somebody set up, and it's compartmentalized where they don't have to do anything. The only thing somebody have to do is destroy that system or build something of their own because it's compartmentalized. The right hand don't know what the left hand is doing, but they're keeping whatever they set. And the issue was, do not pay them for slavery or whatever, because if that society, we need to finance something to run an economy. And if we don't have a workforce, if you look, why you think the average white person life is better than the average black? Because the average black is the fuel that sustain their life. If you look, the businesses who work and who's the consumer. You understand what I'm saying? So these things have to change, and in order for
I got a different view on that though.
Drisco, before you respond, I want to read one of Jasmine's comments.
Okay.
Let me get back to it because the comments are flowing in. Jasmine says she guess she's a little bit different because she's a Christian. She says, I'm a Christian. I'm a son of God before I'm Black. So my communities are my brothers and sisters in Christ, Black, white, Hispanic, all creeds and colors. So what I will say to that is, you know, to have brothers and sisters in Christ, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I do think that Black people need to take on a Black first mentality. We only stand to gain from that because we have to build something for ourselves, just as other nations of people do and other people within this country. You know,
how do you define a Black person's mentality, if you could be clear on that?
I feel like it should be a Black first mentality by first, you know, identifying as a Black person before anything else. Yes, we have different cultures, we have different religions, but, you know, just for how race is categorized, especially in this country where we're all Black people. And I think that we need to unify under that first and foremost, and then the other things should follow that. That's my outlook.
And may I ask, like, two-part question? What do you think? Why do you think that's important as far as the benefits of that? And then two, in relation to the fact of there being multiple different colored people in Haiti, Jamaica, and even Africa, are you saying that they should be separated as well, though they're in African countries?
Well, I feel like first and foremost, every Black person, especially since we are the fruit of Africa, I'm personally a Pan-African person. Like, I'm what would be considered as an American Black, but I don't separate myself from somebody who's from Jamaica or Haiti or even a continental African. I feel like we all need to get back to our roots because we're all African people. Yes, we have our subcultures now, but we need to unify under our roots because we are not as different as we think we are. And I think we only stand to gain from that. Africa is a beautiful place with a lot of resources. And I feel like us as Black people, no matter where we are on the globe, we need to be taking advantage of those resources. You have people from all over the world that are constantly in Africa benefiting from our root home. And we're not taking advantage of that. And I see that as a problem because we stand to gain so much once we unify under that umbrella that we are the descendants of Africa, and we need to get back to that so that we can benefit from that beautiful continent that is our original place.
And what shade is the cutoff for that in regards to, like, since you're saying it's more important than Africa, Jamaica, or Haiti, it's about being Black. What shade is the cutoff for you being considered Black? Because there are also light-skinned people that consider themselves Black.
No, it's well, I'm sorry.
I guess I'll let Michael answer.
No, what you shade, it's not about a shade. It's all about it's melanin. If you're melanated, then you're Black. That's just how it is.
Okay.
But you know, you segue into a topic where in order to get some context, you have to understand history. And I think back in 1786 or 1876 or whenever they had the Berlin Conference, what happened was the European countries, they were in conflict because none of them liked each other. they have the internal issues over there. And they went into Africa and they were having the internal issues over there. And they all came together and says, at the Berlin conference, which if you Google right now, they're looking to have another Berlin conference. And they came together and said, hey, listen, we're all Europeans. Rather than us fighting here, why don't we just chop Africa up and operate in different zones over here, and we can have and they build a wealth on that. And they also have in the treaty what they call the continuation of colonization, where, for example, France is into Benin or one of these countries, and France tell, yeah, you're free, you're independent, but your money, we have to print your money. And if you need to get a loan, you have to get approval from us. But we can take your money and do whatever we want with it and make billions. So there are billions of dollars coming out of Africa, going into these countries, running these countries, these economies. And back to the issue of reparation. Like I said, it's all about businesses and contracts and agreements that people made. And we living here in the United States, we tend to believe that we're the center of the world and agreements that are made internationally don't apply.
So Drisco, what is your thoughts on that? How do you feel about us being able to benefit from our mother continent just as everybody else in the world is? Do you agree that's something that as a people we need to take advantage of?
I got no problem with that. That sounds lovely.
So how do you see us getting to that place if we can't even agree that we need a unified community here so that we can begin to reach out to African people in other parts of the world?
I think that's where I get confused. If we're trying to get to that place, then the goal needs to be to get our passport and go through necessary steps to get to Africa. I feel like I don't know. I think we do a lot of talking points that don't really match what we say the end goal is, because we're trying to do something in America that to me is not rational, because this country wasn't meant for that. So that was my question that I was going to ask next. Are we ultimately saying that we need to have our community here that is segregated, or are we trying to go back to Africa? And it sounds like you answered that question, which I have no issue with that. That's not necessarily a goal of mine, because I'm not a citizen of Africa. I wish I knew my heritage there. I don't have any issue with those who want to make that their quest.
Right,
I just personally see more opportunity in America.
Well, not necessarily
okay, so
back to Africa, but a European person in America doesn't live, I guess you could say, on the European continent, but there are unions and things that are put in place to where they communicate with each other. They have their meetups, their meetings, they decide things.
I don't think that's true for people that are not citizens of those countries. Like my brother here, I'm not sure his situation, but if he's only a U.S. citizen, I don't think he can go.
All right, for example,
the place of his heritage.
For example, Ghana, the only Black people on the planet who cannot just walk up into Ghana right now are Americans, because Americans take on the title of African Americans, and is because of the passport of the United States, they are under certain restrictions. Ghana in 2019 launched the Year of Return, where the only requirement is to be Black. And you come back and you get whatever. You can start a business, you can do whatever. You see, there is excuse me?
So what are we waiting on if we can do that?
Well,
what are we waiting on as a people then?
Well, I think we all have to get on one accord.
Yeah, because there is a division. But the other thing that people are not understanding, that there is a new order people been hearing about the New World Order and all kind of things, and there's a whole big old conspiracy theory and all of that kind of stuff. I'm
It's
involved
real.
in
It's not a
cryptocurrency.
conspiracy.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's not. But I'm involved in cryptocurrency, and what people don't realize is, yeah, that's the one world currency right there. You either get on board or get rolled over. You know, so I'm saying the other thing that people don't understand. I mentioned the treaty that happened in Berlin, the Berlin Conference. Those treaties has expired. The African country is not, African Union is now a country. It is ratified. There is no borders. There no anything. And all of the contracts that the Europeans had in Africa, those are becoming null and void because they're now doing value added, where if the product was originate in Africa, you're gonna have to pay for all the processes and shipping it back there. So it makes no sense to even import stuff from wherever. There has been a big, I don't know what you call it, to censor out people from looking into Africa. And a lot of us here disconnect ourselves from Africa because of the, I don't know, the mindset, the lack of whatever. And back again, every person of Caucasian descent, when you ask them if they identify as American first, and you say, no, but where you pay, every one of them know their roots, their origination. I'm either Irish, German, Italian, French, all of that. None of us as Black people in this hemisphere will identify with Africa because we have a negative connotation to our ancestral land. But I make one point, my issue also is that I don't believe that people over a certain age are easily redeemable. So I can converse and get the opinion and associate with like-minded people. But my intention is to capture the children from 12 to 25, because I believe after 25, you're over there and it's make no sense to even argue with you. And it's believed that once we have a sense of pride and a sense of where we're from, it will be better because there is hood everywhere.
Right.
So
I want to ask Drisco a question really quickly because we're gonna be wrapping up soon.
Yeah.
So you said before about Africa and things like that. What are we waiting for? And you don't have any plans to go back to Africa and things. Well, to go to Africa because technically, not many of us have been there. But let's just say that we build this unified front and we get things going. Are you opposed to that Black community? Like what is your real thoughts on us having a community somewhat as like you would see the Jewish community, the Chinese community, the Irish community? Like what is your fundamental thought on that? Like how do you feel about that? Do you think that it's something that you don't want to be a part of? Do you think it would be beneficial to us if we could actually get it going?
No, I'm not opposed to anything that works in peace and harmony. And if we were able, or I won't even say we, because I'm not going to take the credit for it. If a group of people were able to get that going somewhere in Africa and it made sense, I have no issue with that. I was more so addressing the idea of segregation in America that I didn't think was a good idea or a rational goal.
Well, when it comes back to the point of America, what is it about America in particular that you think that something like that would not be feasible? Segregation, I don't know if I would call it segregation because it would be a community. It doesn't mean that you wouldn't interact with people from other communities. It means that you would just have that community that is somewhat more so specific to your culture.
Okay, yeah, I don't have an issue with that then. Maybe I misunderstood what you were saying.
Okay, so just let me make a little point, and it's like Indian. They go to Indian. There's a a chain of stores called Patel Brothers. You know what I'm saying? Anything you see kosher. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
It's if wherever if you live in a certain area and there are a predominant they are a structure that provide for them first. You know, when you go outside, you're not racist if you think to put your dollar in a black person's hand first. Like when you buy, like that's what I do. When I buy something, I see who I'm putting my money, whose hand. Look, we used to run around and wearing all kind of name brand stuff and not realizing that we're helping to pay the loan on our the slave, the deal that they made. We're actually facilitating that by buying these people's clothes. And I don't know about you, but I'd rather know where my money is going. I work hard for it. You know, so I'm saying, and the potential of giving somebody who was an oppressor my money is not, and group economics, there's nothing wrong with it, because at the end of the day, you said how would a segregated community look in America? Well, they used to be, when I first came here, if I see a white person in the area, the Bronx where I used to live, it was foreign. Now I go inside that area and I'm like, what's going on here? The point I'm trying to make is that once you're scattered all over the place, the system is getting exactly what it needs from you. And you're an individual until there's something collectively that happened and you're like, oh, I wasn't a part of this until it affect me. So, and when it affects you is when you're going to be like, oh, I should have, could have, would have. And to avoid that, it's better to unite and think black first, because it's a thing that once it starts, it will be, you know, and you don't have to agree with the whole segregating and all of that, but just collectively, economically, we're doing something. Just even the thought of like, I'm spending my money with a black business. Ain't nothing wrong with that, because everybody else is doing it. You know, so I'm saying.
Right. So essentially, I mean, because I'm a black man, obviously, I mean, I grew up in an all black neighborhood. My family is black, you know what I'm saying? So naturally, I like the ideas that you're putting forth as far as like supporting your own versus these major corporations. I'm with that. And that happens by default. I just never really put it into the words, I guess, that you were asking, because I guess the biggest thing that becomes an issue is that like not all black people are on the same page mentally, even in what we want. For instance, you know, in the Jewish communities, the Russian communities, whatever, they all have a standard idea of what is or isn't acceptable and how we want to be identified. That's not the case in the black community. We have a percentage that think it's cool to be thugs. We have a percentage that go a political route and they're considered Uncle Toms. We have another percentage that's anti-everything America. We have another percentage that's like, let's buy land in America. So it's hard to really imagine an idea of what y'all are saying when we don't even have a centralized idea of who we are and what we want to be identified as in the first place.
See, what I just hear is a leaderless I just hear a leaderless group of people. I yield.
Drisco, it's like that in the white community too. Like on our end, and this is for people who aren't like integrated. Maybe you live in a place in America where it is very black and white, and we think exactly the same way. We're not like, hey, you're white, I'm gonna go shop at your store. It's more like, you know what, this dude right here is solid. I know if I take my truck to his garage, he's gonna fix my transmission right. That's where I'm gonna drop it. I'm not gonna drop it into this name brand big whatever business, name your business, whatever you want. And it works exactly the same way with in the white community, if you want to put it into colors. Definitely when I want good food and I want good curry, I don't go to white people. You go to the Jamaican stores here. Fortunately, I live in South Florida. I know where to go. So we think in the same terms, like, where's the quality at? That's where I want to drop my dollar. And what Michael said, I love that, because I think exactly the same way that you just said. I don't like supporting, and even though I'm white, I still see it through the same lens. These big companies like Walmart, they sunk the mom and dream. The mom and pop American dream is not white, it's American. There used to be corner stores. It didn't matter whether you're Jamaican, you're Haitian, or not. You could make a store, and your store alone would sustain your entire family. Sometimes the moms didn't even have to work. Companies like Walmart destroyed that for everybody. So when we drop our dollar, I don't shop in Walmart. I can't stand them. I would encourage nobody to shop there. Yeah, you're selling your soul for a little bit of a discount on an item. And people definitely can get into that mentality where they back the right people. And this goes on to what you said, Drisco. I'll wrap this up, Miss Shelley. I apologize. I don't want to hijack you. People don't say, okay, you're white, so you guys agree. No, absolutely not, dude. We don't even think that way. It goes into spirituality and morals. Like, these people over here, which in my community, again, is mainly the Christian community, but not all the Christian community. You just gravitate towards people who have the same goals and visions for life, and that is your community. And that's the way that we think on our side. And it's awesome because we're actually stronger. We have tighter bonds than skin color, and we do support each other. These people show up when you're sick with chicken noodle soup. And likewise, when you find out so-and-so, like, meet a Drisco. If I find out Drisco lives in my neighborhood and he just lost his job, listen, how can we help you? What can we do? And that doesn't go on social media. That's just what you do behind the scenes within our community culture.
And even in the music industry, like, we don't. Well, let me just address this first matter. The major artists in hip hop and rap, even, the majority of their success comes from the white community, if we're honest. I mean, and maybe you're not educated on that, but that's something that you'll hear Lil Wayne talk about. That's something even Future had to be honest about, that over 80% of the market for hip hop music comes from suburban white kids that never lived that lifestyle.
That is true. But,
I'm sorry, Michael. One thing I just want to interject really quickly. One thing that I will say is that because our situation is kind of unique, is why we have to go out of our way to support each other. Because, quiet as it's, well, not even quiet as it's kept. What people don't understand is that it's very difficult to get a Black person to support another Black person.
Absolutely.
Black community. And it's because of the damage that has been done to us mentally. There's layers upon layers of things that need to be reconstructed within Black society. We need to, honestly, for a while, even if it's just temporary, we need to stop and fix the issues in our community. It's gonna take the collective in order to do that, because it's no reason why you look on social media and you see another Black person going out of their way to bash a Black business, but then they'll go in Walmart and get terrible service and carry on with their day like nothing happened. That is people call it mental slavery. It's a mental problem within our community. And that is why our situation in this country is so unique, because we haven't undone the damage that has been done to us generation after generation. And right now, it's my opinion, and a lot of people agree, we need to focus on ourselves for a minute, because we're never going to be able to get out of the situations that we're in if we don't take out that time, that critical time that is needed to focus on our situations and deal with them and fix them. We're trying to mingle in with everybody else, and we need to focus on ourselves right now, because when we do that, we lose sight of what makes us who we are. We lose sight of who we are as a people. And I think we need to first establish that. We need to first establish some type of identity, and then we can concentrate on everyone else, because we've spent too much time doing that under integration, and we've lost sight of a lot of things. We need to begin to reverse some of that and focus on us so that we can be in a situation that is conducive to the advancement and the upliftment of our group. I don't really see where the issue comes in with that. I think that most people should agree, but again, we don't all agree on everything, but I think that is where we start. We have to identify that there is a problem, because if we continue to kind of just glaze over it and make it seem like it's not a big deal, then we're never going to fix it. And I think that's where we first have to start, identifying the issues, and then again coming up with solutions about how we're going to break these cycles.
Can I interject? I love that you're talking about identity. And I want to be clear, I never said there's not a problem in the community. And what I love that you addressed about identity is that seems to be the biggest problem. And when you say we need to work on ourselves, everybody seems to have a different picture of what that looks like. Because often when I hear people say that, it doesn't actually be that. It is more so complaining about what white people have done and going on and on about the past. And it's never actually working on ourselves. It's never addressing the fact that we commit 50% of the violent crimes in America. It's never addressing father absence. Let me finish, please, my brother.
Based on whose statistics.
Right, I get you. And it's never actually the fact that father absence is 80% of our homes are without a father. I mean, these are major problems that we brush over when we have these conversations of fix ourselves. So that's why I wonder what is fix ourselves, because for most of the conversations I'm having, it's never that. It's I want to make noise until we fix white people, and it's never going to happen.
No,
so if we're talking about those things, I'm all for it.
Right. That's why I made it a point to say we need to focus specifically on ourselves.
Right.
The issues that are going on within our communities. We need to kind of back away. We do need to back away right now and focus on us. Because when you mention crime is directly, studies show that crime is directly linked to poverty in many cases, especially in the Black community. Because contrary to popular belief, we're not naturally a violent people. We're just not. And history shows.
I agree with that. Yeah, it's a brainwash.
Yeah, so.
I mean, because it's not just poverty, it's also our entertainment and our music values.
Right. But when you think about how the music industry is ran, they're preying on people that are in poverty for these contracts. They're getting them to put their message out there. And if somebody's living in poverty, they're not going to turn down a big record contract. It's just not plausible.
But why do we make the excuses though, instead of educating them against it? Because this is my issue. Like we had the Revolt summit, and we have all of these different things where Black leadership is coming together, but nobody is saying, hey, we need to grow. We need to stop doing these things. We need to be better than that. If we are educated and we know what the problem is, but we don't change it, what are we ultimately doing then?
Well, there is a segment of us that, continue to say that the music industry as it is now is really detrimental to our community. But again, the people that want to come up with the solutions, as I feel like majority of us do, we're going to have to provide an alternative. Because if you're telling these kids not to get this record deal, this is bad, these people are using you to poison your community, but you don't have anything in place that they can go to in order to provide for their families and things like that, they're not going to hear you. So that's what I mean by working on ourselves, identifying the issues and ultimately coming up with the solutions. And that's pretty much where we are right now. We know what the problems are, but if we're not willing to unify under that, because we want to not even identify that there is a problem, because that's another issue. Some people are saying like, well, I live good in this country, I'm okay. But what about the rest of your people? Do you even care? Do you have a concern for them? That's my issue, because
I think it's a mindset thing though, because I grew up in poverty. I have all the excuses. I had an absent father who was in prison. I should be a statistic, but we still got to make a choice. And I think we're always talking about excuses, and there's never nobody actually saying we need to make up our mind. We aren't going to let the excuses affect us anymore.
Well, Michael, do you want to chime in? Because we're going to be wrapping up soon.
Yeah, well, like I said, again, you said it. There's two things I believe when it comes to the issue of race. When it comes to how I experience racism, no white person can tell me or have no place to have any conversation on that with me. When it comes to issues of unity or fixing the problems within the Black community, no Black person should say to another Black person that, hey, I don't believe or I don't. It's how can I help? What can we do? Everybody know there's a problem. And we're at a point now where talking about all the different problems, we've been beating that with a stick. We've been marching, we've been protesting, we've been doing a whole bunch of stuff and nothing changed. Where we're at right now, that's why my show is Solutions, because we need to fix things. We need to deal with the youth because their mind is already, they're still looking for, when you get to a certain belief, that's where you're gonna go. We need to deal with economics, finance, politics, history, true history, and a sense of pride. We don't have none of that. So until we get on one accord, where we're at right now, we need to be on how can I help? How can we fix this? How can we tackle this problem? Not we have the problems. We already know we have a whole bunch of problems, and we just need to identify individual problem as a level of urgency and work towards it within the capacity that we can.
I love that. I love that. I appreciate that, and I agree with you. And I mentioned, I heard there was talk of reparations earlier. I have no issue with reparations. If it comes, I'm gonna take it. Just like the people who don't agree with the government took their stimulus. It's gonna happen. But at the end of the day, you mentioned that you didn't think reparations should come in the form of cash. I was wondering, what do you think would be a better option for reparations?
Well, like I said, reparation, it has to come in first. It's a nation, so it is. You see how they formed the nation of Liberia after they sent some slaves back over there, and that all collapsed because whatever.
Gotcha.
It has to be on a nation. They know this. It's sitting there. It's in front of the UN. It just needs, like I just said, it needs for. They had an emergency meeting and they determined that Black people within America is in under a state of emergency. But nobody's telling us that we need to unify and come in one accord on I think they say 1 million people in one area, demonstrating a percentage of population. They sign on the dotted line, and then we can discuss how that nation is going to look. And incentive for reparation, because by then, now the government have some people that they need to talk to. Right now, they don't have nobody to talk to, and they have contingency plan for when a person get killed, they route that up and people go tear shit up, burn shit down, and they wait, send out the National Guard, and you go back and they're like, okay, it's regular scheduled programming. And that will continue because it facilitates their agenda. As long as we're distracted, they have the upper class, middle class, white folks who are comfortable. But what happened is right now the middle class is eroded. So now the upper class or upper middle class is under threat. So we're in a position where we can unify and actually get something, because the system is being, it's in a disarray. The New World Order or whatever is coming. They're in a point where they're in turmoil, and it's a beautiful time. It's a scary time, but I know it's conspiracy theory, but it's also part of reality. You can look it up. They're planning, and we are at a point now where we just need to unify. We need to have a unified voice on how we're gonna move forward as a group of people, and get what we need to get. And in order to do that, we have to stop with the, but what's that going to look like? Or what's the, I don't believe in this. All right, we are for a better nation. Everybody else does it. You don't have to agree with the person. It's kind of like, you know how they do like recall votes or whatever, and you might not know the ins and outs. And they say, do you like the president? We're signing a petition to have him whatever. You know what I'm saying? You don't know what's going on in the political landscape, but your personal feelings about him, you don't like him, so you sign the petition. It's the same thing. Are you black? We're working towards, okay, sign right here. The like, if you look into the Back to Africa thing, it is, one of the things they're building and I'll wrap it up. They're building a infrastructure. It's called Wakanda 2 in Africa. And when the colonizers were there, they built roads to the ports and everything, but there's no infrastructure going from north to south. So the country of Ghana gave 1,000 acres for anybody who want to be a part of that. And they building the infrastructure, and they're looking for companies in America, Black-owned business, that can either be communication, construction, whatever, to build the infrastructure there. The point is that we need to get out of the me and it's the us, because once you start opening up your eyes to that, you're going to realize that there are also opportunities of building actually a real nation. So I'm saying, where Africa is the world's one of the world's most resourceful in some resources, and the most resourceful in others. And the raw materials, so pretty much everything is there. So if you're building, you don't have to. So there are lots of stuff, but in order for us to realize things, we have to collectively start in looking in us first, because once we see these things, we start to realize that, because I'm pretty sure you didn't know that there is opportunities. You just have to be black and show up at the embassy of Ghana, and you go over there, you get mine and contracts and all you have to do is on paper tell the government, hey, this is what I'm going to do. And they're like, okay, there is 50 acres of land. You're going to have to clear it and do whatever the hell you're planning to do over there. And you just have to prove that you can do it. And that's it. There you go.
Yeah, that sounds like a great place to start.
There's nowhere in America that provides that.
Right. And that's as we wrap up here, I feel like that most can agree that right now we're in the solutions phase. We know what has been done. I feel like the fight for reparations is going to continue until we get it. And I really agree with Michael on that when he says that reparations more than likely is going to be paid to a nation. So I think nation building is something that we really need to focus on, so that we can have something that we can look back on and that we can pass down to the generations following us. I think that we don't spend a lot of time thinking generational. I personally feel that we think too much on the individualistic level. And I really would like to see us come together, because I know that we have so much to offer the world. But when we're scattered and individualized, people don't, they don't get to see that. And I think that is something that we really should focus on. So I want everybody to just give their final thoughts here before we close out.
Okay. Yeah, so my final thoughts, I love what y'all are talking about, honestly. And I thank y'all for taking the time to give me better perspective. And it's hard to disagree with your approach. I also must say that I believe that, there has to be a respect for that choice. And for those who see that as the best fit for them, I have no problem with it. And even whatever role I can do to help and support it is fine. But I personally feel like our ancestors helped build this land, and I take my claim here, and I want my part in it. And I believe those who achieve wealth in America don't have an issue with their generations. And I believe that most of the problems that we face are related to poverty. I understand how we got there. I understand slavery's role and all of that. But for those who make it out and do right, they can fix these issues. Every Black person in America is not going through the same thing and does not have the same story. So I don't think it's solely based on our race, but more so our class. And maybe I'm just hopeful and too optimistic. But again, I don't shun any of the ideas presented here. And I support anybody trying to do that. And, you know, I don't mind being a part of it. I just don't see myself leaving to be a part of another nation after the blood, sweat, and tears that my ancestors put in here. I'm taking what's mine.
Okay. Okay. That's fair enough. You know, again, one thing about it is that it's a beautiful idea. I support the unification of our race and ultimately a nation for ourselves. I support it wholeheartedly. Everybody is not going to agree, and that's completely fine. But I'm just hoping and praying that within my lifetime, I can see this, this come to life, and I will be doing everything within my power to see to it that it does take place.
I want to see it too.
Vince, where can we find your platform? Are you on YouTube? Do you have a website?
Actually, right now I've been off social media completely. Dissolved Facebook, a little bit on Instagram just to see what people are talking about, and because we're at the crossroad turmoils of what could be the Great Reset or a Great Revolution or whatever people want to do at this moment in time. But building off of what our topic is at hand, I definitely am for the individual to find their calling so that they can make everything happen that you're talking about. I've always been that way. It's, being state raised, I felt like a slave to the state, and the care was crappy and everything about it was crappy, and I wanted to be independent from it. So finding that way to have your identity solidified, collectively as a group, it's a beautiful thing, and it can be a beautiful thing. And I hope that everybody is able to find their calling within that.
Right. So me personally, I don't believe because I'm Black first or be Black first mean that I'm against others. Like you said, unity is strength. And if we don't get together, we're never going to achieve anything. And what happened is a lot of us, the younger generation, had the luxury of age. Our parents, they saw something, and what they handed down to us, we have to work with. And it's like that revolving door. That young man earlier, he's gonna look back on a few years and be like, damn, I kind of get it. Retrospect is one of those things that, it comes with age. But I also believe that we're in a time where financially everything is we kick that can to the 1,000-foot wall, and you can't get it over the wall unless you kick it. So that's impossible. And there are a lot of turmoil ahead, and a lot of people are going to realize that they've been living on a Ponzi scheme. And my thing is to kind of head the curve with some solutions, because I believe that relatively soon there are going to be a lot of people confused because the system that they've been used to is no more.
I agree with that.
Excuse me. I totally agree with that. And I want to thank all of you for joining me tonight for this discussion, because I feel like it was a very, very important discussion. Opening the door to finding solutions is what I'm all about. Like I said before, we already know the problems. Right now is the time for action and solutions. And before I close out, I'm just going to read the last few comments that came in. And Jasmine says, family is the solution and we need fathers, which I completely agree with. Urban Country Film says, these are critical times. And Jasmine says, we will achieve anything that we put our minds to. And I totally agree with that. So again, thank you guys for being here tonight. Thank you for joining me for this segment. I really appreciate everybody's input. And one thing I would definitely like to say to the Black community is it's time to get to work and it's time to get to the solutions. Michael, is there anything else you wanted to add?
Yes. Hey, you can buy $1 worth of Bitcoin. If you buy $1 worth of Bitcoin last year, this time you have probably $80. It's something that it's a pay to play. If you're in it, I'm like I said, solutions, and Bitcoin is one of the easiest thing right now that is new, and we just need to put our heads together and make a lot of money. All right,
I
guys.
totally agree on that.
All right.
Thank you guys.
All right, guys. Y'all have a good Sunday.
I appreciate you having us on, Shelly, and I definitely
right.
got faith in you. I know you're gonna do and see your wildest dreams.
All right.
It's good to finally see you here on the panel because we talk a lot on Facebook, so it's good to see you face to face.